Viewer Mailbag. Hey, good morning, everybody. And as promised, this is a very special extended edition of Legacy Wealth Management's Viewer Mailbag. So often on the TV show, we try to get to our viewer mailbag and we run out of time, unfortunately. So we want to make sure we get to your questions. It's one of the more popular segments of our TV show, and we've got some great questions today. And the reason we're doing the extended mailbag version is a lot of these questions actually do require a little more explanation. So we're going to do that today and get to the bottom of a lot of your questions that we get almost every single day at Legacy Wealth Management in one shape or form or another. So without further ado, let's get to our first question. All right. Our very first question that we have for the day is from Haley in Bismarck. She writes in, my fiance and I recently attended a workshop for soon-to-be married couples at our local church. We weren't surprised to learn that both of us look at our finances very differently. While we do both agree that we need to save, we can't find common ground on how best to do that. He wants to pay down debt while I'd like to invest more to avoid needing to borrow more in the future. What do you guys think would be the best plan? Great question, Haley. Well, first of all, Haley, kudos to you guys for actually going to that workshop at your local church. Getting together on your finances and any sort of, whether it's a marriage or a partnership or anything of that nature, it's very important to open up the lines of communication so that we're on the same page. Now, if I'm understanding you correctly, you've got your husband or soon-to-be husband who wants to pay down debt and you'd like to invest more. So talk about two opposite extremes when it comes toward managing finances. When it comes to managing debt or trying to invest in the stock market or any sort of investment, one of the things that we have to look at when answering the question, should I pay down debt or invest more, is the type of debt that you guys currently have. Assuming, I don't know your age, but assuming that you're younger, might be student loans, might be some credit card debt. Maybe you guys already bought a house together, so it might be a home mortgage. All are going to be treated very differently. I want to start out with the first one, is that credit cards. Credit cards have some of the highest interest rates out there. So if we're going to pay down debt, that would probably be where I would start first. Now, if it's a home mortgage, we're probably going to be planning on living in this home for quite a while. That one could probably more than likely come last. But those credit cards might be something you guys might want to collectively attack and get rid of those as soon as humanly possible. However, if you do not have credit card debt, and this is mainly just either student loans or home mortgage, I think we could probably play to both of your strengths right there and both of your desires, where we could maybe be split. So if you've got some disposable income in your household and, a portion of that could go to investing or a portion of it could go down to paying down the principal on an outstanding loan balance, we might want to be able to split it depending on your current situation. Without knowing it exactly, there's really no surefire way that we could answer the question, but hopefully what we have to say can maybe kind of get those gears turning for you to be able to make a good decision. Another key factor when it comes to paying down debt is the actual size of the debt. Now, home mortgage being aside, which for most people out there, that's going to be your biggest loan amount or your biggest outstanding debt. If you do have a decent amount of credit cards or maybe a car loan, depending on the amount would also depend on how much you might put aside for investing versus paying down the debt. Now, like we kind of mentioned, the credit card should come first. If you've got a car loan, depending on when you took out that car loan, interest rates have gone up over the last 2 to 3 years since right after COVID-19, where they were kind of at record lows right after that. So depending on when your car loan was, could depend on whether or not we choose to invest or a combination thereof. From the sounds of it, I would probably go with a blended approach. But again, that's going to depend on what you've got as specific debt and what your income is. So without knowing those variables, I can't give you a guaranteed surefire answer, but the best thing I would go ahead and suggest, let's go ahead and play to both your strengths, maybe add a little bit of investment. It sounds like you guys are younger, so you can afford to take on a little bit more risk when it comes toward the stock market, investing for more growth to kind of meet your needs and your future husband's needs to pay down debt. I don't see any reason we wouldn't be able to do both. Moving on to our next question. Question number 2 comes from Roger from Moorhead. He writes in, my wife and I are about to retire at the end of June. We are thinking about buying a winter home in Florida. Good for you guys. we were curious whether we should pay cash out of our retirement savings or taking out a mortgage. Our current home is paid for. We don't have any other debt to speak of, and we have about $875,000 saved in our 401ks combined. A few of the homes we were looking at down in Florida are priced between $275,000 to $315,000. We don't anticipate needing any other funds out of our retirement accounts for several years. Should we pay cash or finance the home? What are your thoughts? Great question. All right, Roger. Well, first things first, congratulations to you guys for saving such a healthy amount for retirement. $875,000, a job very, very well done. Also, congratulations on looking to buy a summer home down in my home state of Florida. So great job there. To answer your question, whether or not you should pull out I'm assuming a 30-year mortgage on the winter home down in Florida, or to pay cash out of your retirement, with interest rates being where they are compared to where they were around COVID-19, interest rates, obviously, home mortgages were in that 3 to 4% range. Today, they're almost double, closer to 7%. So it can seem like on the surface level, the best move would be to pull that money out of your retirement, pay cash for the house, not have to worry about any sort of mortgage payment. Can totally understand how you guys would maybe feel that way or be leaning that direction. However, there is something that we need to talk about. Let's just assume, I think on the high side, you said it was about $315,000 for this house. If you were to pull out $315,000, this is assuming that all of your retirement funds are pre-tax money. In other words, they're tax deferred. You haven't paid any taxes on them yet until you pull that money out of your retirement. If you were to pull out over $300,000, the IRS is not going to take very kindly to that as far as your income tax rate. 2025 rates would put your income, your current tax rate around 24%. So basically $1 in $4 that you pull out would need to go to taxes. So you would need to pull out far more than just the $315 to make up for that tax liability. All right, Roger, let's pretend for a second that we don't pull out the full amount of funds to pay for this house. Let's just say that we put down, say, a 20% down payment, which is usually the standard there in the mortgage economy. And let's just say that budget's out to be about $75,000 that you pull from your retirement. Keep in mind, every penny of that is going to go to your income taxes, so you will have a tax liability. But let's just say that $65,000 of that goes toward a down payment. I went ahead and took the liberty of just plugging in the basic numbers that you kind of wrote in with your letter. And what it would boil down to is putting down about a $65,000 down payment, assuming the house is about $315,000, like you mentioned. That would put your mortgage payment, that's with insurance and property tax in the state of Florida, somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,100 to $2,300 a month. Now, remember, that's after that $65,000 down payment. So why do I bring all this up? Well, with $800,000 remaining in your IRA, if you invested so that you were getting more than, say, 4 to 5% return, which is a very conservative sort of investment portfolio, mainly fixed income instruments that can almost and completely ignore the stock market for the most part. If you had that invested in that such a way at 4 to 5%, you would return enough per year to make your payments each month. So while it might seem like a worthwhile venture not to have a mortgage payment, especially if it's in a home down in Florida that you only plan on living there 6 to 8 months of the year, assuming if that's just strictly a winter home, it would seem on the surface level that paying cash might be the better option. But in the long run, when you really look at it on the surface, it might not make the most sense today. Keep in mind, with the economy and inflation starting to slow, there is some talk about the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates in the future. So even if you did kind of take the initial suggestion of financing the house, interest rates will be coming down, giving you the opportunity to possibly refinance in the future. That being said, another really good point too, if we're going to pull out $300,000 from your IRA, assuming it's pre-tax money, avoiding a 20 to 24% tax bracket off of $300,000 would be extremely worthwhile. Whether that interest rate is 6%, 7%, or even higher, that amount of tax rate would go to a lot of interest over a lot of years. So in conclusion, when it comes toward the question of whether or not you should pay cash or whether or not you should finance the entire mortgage, I would kind of suggest maybe a little bit of a blended approach. Put on a sizable, decent down payment that's comfortable enough. Lower your income tax bracket as much as you possibly can. Keep that payment manageable. But with the amount that you guys have saved up for your retirement, I don't really see any reason why that shouldn't be able to suffice to get 3-5% at least at a bare bones minimum to be able to pay that payment. Since you mentioned you don't really need to draw from your IRAs in the immediate future, that might be the great way to go here in the beginning. So Roger, hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully that brought some points out that for you and the wife to think about making that decision on that home in Florida. Best of luck to you. Our next question comes from Yvonne in Ada. She asks, I recently had heard you mention the Trust and Wills program that Legacy Wealth helps clients with. Do you guys help me decide which is the better choice? How do I know if a trust is better for me or a will? How does the program work and how much does it cost? Well, first of all, great question, Yvonne. We've been getting tons of phone calls here at Legacy Wealth Management asking about our Trust and Wills program. To answer your initial question, how much does it cost? Any client of ours gets that service absolutely free of charge. Paul and myself at Legacy Wealth Management want to make sure that in retirement and even after our retirement years, that your family is well taken care of. All the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, so that you've got an estate plan in place that, guess what? We can change it whenever we need to. That's part of the program at Legacy Wealth Management. So to answer your question, if you're a client of ours, that's never a charge to you. We would never do that. Second part of your question is a very important one and one that Paul and I get asked all the time. Which one should I choose? Should I choose a trust? Should I choose a will? That is a great question, and that's going to depend on every single person individually. Now, Paul and I aren't estate planners. We're not attorneys, right? So we kind of defer to the experts on this. Now, the great thing about the Trust and Wills program is when you log in and you begin the process of starting a trust or a will, there is a short quiz that you can take part in, and it will give you a recommendation on whether or not it thinks a will is best for you or a trust is best for you. So now we can't give direct recommendations, but the Trust and Wills program can help you make that tough decision. Hopefully that answers your question, Yvonne, when it comes to the Trust and Wills program. It's a fantastic program that we offer all of our clients. We want to make sure you're well taken care of in retirement. Moving on to our next question, Mary from Horace writes in, my husband and I get very nervous about the stock market. We retired a couple of years ago, and after the recent downturn in the stock market, we sold all of our investments and we now have all cash. When do you guys think a good time would be to get back into the market? With all the things going on in the news, I'm not sure what to do. Mary, this is a common story almost every single day at Legacy Wealth Management with everything that has been going on in the news out of Washington and, of course, international, and with the tariff conversation that has caused so much turmoil in the market, especially come here in April with the downturn in the market. We get all kinds of questions all the time. Should I be in the market? Should I be shifting to more conservative investments? Is now a good time to even buy? Should I, as a term as described, should I buy the dip? Is that even a possibility? What should I be doing? All right, Mary, at Legacy Wealth Management, we're long-term investors. And there's a reason that we're long-term investors, because while past performance never dictates future results, study after study has shown that this quote that I'm about to give you is kind of the truth. And that quote is, it's not about timing the market, it's about time spent in the market. So why do we say that? Well, if we go back and look at history, and at any given point when you start investing, the longer you hold into the stock market and the more time that goes by, your odds increase drastically of showing a positive return. Matter of fact, after about 1 month, you're at about a 60% chance of showing a positive result. We fast forward to a year, you're over 70% chance. And at 16 years, every single study, this is since 1928, which that's really important because what happened in 1928 into 1929 was the Great Recession, or the Great Depression rather. So, but after 16 years, it's a 100% chance that your returns will be positive. Again, past performance does not dictate future results, but it is about time spent in the market, not trying to time it. So we are long-term investors here at Legacy Wealth. And like we often try to say, we're always trying to grow your portfolio, but we also want to talk about the income portion of it, right? When we invest in income producing things, when you need to take distributions, say it's on the first of every single month to help make ends meet and pay your bills, if we've got income rolling in, regardless of kind of what the stock market is doing, you've got an income that you can count on. So that's one of the things that we try to do at Legacy Wealth Management is blend those two approaches. We want to invest as best as we possibly can, as safely as we possibly can, but we also want to maintain our presence in the market because we want to play those odds that the longer we're in the market, the more likelihood we're going to show a positive return. So if you're interested, give us a call at Legacy Wealth Management. We'd love to get to know you. We can kind of go through the various different portfolio options that we can put together for you to ensure that over time you get the best result possible. So give us a call, 701-365-8083. Looking forward to your phone call. This has been the very special extended edition of the Legacy Wealth Management Viewer Mailbag. We hope you enjoyed the questions. We look forward to seeing you next week. And as the great Paul Meyers would say,
as my dad used to say, you've got to make hay while the sun's shining.